Welcome to episode 9 of Seeking Focus.
Welcome to Seeking Focus, a podcast that provides photographers and videographers with a place to critically compare technology, share ideas, and enhance their skills.
Hey bro, what's been happening with you? With bloody lockdowns left, right and centre. Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, even Canberra. It's all in the lockdown. What's going on with you?
I don't think Canberra's ever been in lockdown before, has it?
Apparently, no, they haven't. They haven't been in lockdown for like a year. So that's something new for them. They're all panic buying, I think.
Wow, exceptional.
Yeah.
Saw some video footage of their shelves being empty and all the toilet paper missing, but yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in the middle of another lockdown, as Marty just said, and we're recording this episode via a live stream from both our studios. So we're in different parts of Melbourne, and we're recording the episode via a live video feed. Yeah, it's the first time we're doing this.
All of our jobs have been cancelled and everything has just been out of whack. You know what I mean? I don't know. I lost all my jobs. I think, I had a few big jobs on and everything's been cancelled and hopefully they'll come back to me. But I think I've edited all the numbers and I think I probably lost about $5,000-$6,000 just in like in 1 week, you know what I mean, in that sense. So it's just been really shit for me, man.
It has been, but it's allowed us quality time with our families. I can see your face. Look at that. that face.
I think if people are listening to us, my kids are teenagers now, so they kind of, they don't want to spend any time with me, and my kids are these days, just want to have chats with their friends and everything else. Like my daughter, she would watch movies or Netflix with her friends, and they're both, being like, let's watch this movie, and then let's press play now. So they both watch exactly the same thing through their laptops, and then they have a chat at the same time on Zoom or other sort of meetings or whatever else. So just like us recording this, they're all locked down, can't go anywhere, can't do anything. So it's just frustrating, man. But yeah, what are your thoughts, man?
My thoughts. my kids are very young, so they're constantly hanging off my shoulders, wanting me to do something with them. So it's kind of difficult, especially when you've got other things on. But it's part of life, and I think after how many lockdowns? I think this is number 6 or something here in Melbourne. You sort of get to the point, that you get to a point where you sort of, for me personally, it's like, well, you just shrug your shoulders and think, well, there's not much I can do about it. Just got to move on. It's difficult. We're losing money, but so is everyone else. And that's just the way, unfortunately, it is. And just got to cope with it.
Frustrating.
Indeed. And one of the things that I'm actually finding in a lot of the forums is a lot of people are trying to find loopholes to be able to go out and take photos. And, they're relabeling themselves as essential service workers. And you're just like, taking photos is not essential services, and we have all these debates and people are saying, but if you read this document and you read that and they're reading parts of the documents which are incorrect, it relates to something completely that has nothing to do with work purposes, and they're misinterpreting it. And it's actually really frustrating to see people do that. I mean, I understand we all want to go out and work, but, trying to find loopholes, it just doesn't happen. So, it's a horrible thing to see. What can you do? On a positive note, though, you had another one of your productions on television released this week.
Oh, yeah. I did actually. It was so good, actually, because I was actually at my part-time job and just eating lunch, and the commercial came on, and I started jumping around in the in tea room, and everyone's like, "Marty, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Hey, man, it's my commercials on TV." So yeah, look, it's a good feeling, to have, and I think once you sort of shoot it and then you edit it and you put everything together yourself, you get a buzz out of it. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel anyway. It's just makes you feel good that you're doing something productive and something good for the people, to be able to, maybe, improve their business. And, so the commercial was Jim's Antennas and security, I think it was as well. They've included a security component. So it was like a 30-second thing, and came on, and, you kind of go, yeah, this is so cool, you know what I mean? So Yeah, so I think both of us. You had some things in a drive-ins, didn't you, or like cinemas or something?
Cinemas,
as well?
yeah. I had a couple of productions in cinemas and stuff, which was quite impressive, but never made it to the big time like you, Marty. So congratulations.
Yeah, don't give me that. No, man. It's good, man. It feels good, man. That's the thing, you know what I mean? And it wasn't a huge production. I did it all by myself. But we had probably about a good 6 or 7 guys from Jim's Antennas, jumping in and sort of giving us a chop out there as well, and helping us out from that perspective. Or I remember, I think we did probably about 3 or 4 takes actually for that particular one, and and then we used the drone for that as well, and then we used one of the houses that one of the guys lives in as well. So look, the whole thing was very much on the budget as well, you know what I mean? And look, I think it worked out really well. So I was wrapped with it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it should have been. I mean, it was a good production. I originally, when I first saw it, you have a voiceover done on it with a gentleman who sounds very, very country Aussie, and I was just like, I wasn't really a huge fan of it. But when you put it into perspective of where it's going to be played, which is television, it actually really worked. And when I saw it, I was like, oh wow, this is actually really, really good. So when it was complete and played on television, and I got to see it in its full, entire sort of fabulousness.
It's totally different feeling, isn't it?
It was. It really works well. You did well with that production, so congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Yeah, that was good fun.
We look forward to the next one.
Yeah, we'll see. slowly.
You'll get there. Yeah. All right, so this week we're going to be looking at lighting. So we've had a couple of people ask us about lighting and the types of lights that we use when we're doing our productions. So there's a couple of different types of lighting setups that we use. One of them is obviously still photography lighting setups, and you can use consistent lighting for that, or you can use flash lighting. We also do video lighting, so for video productions, which is purely ongoing constant lighting, so there's no flashes in that, obviously. And then we've also got studio lighting, which basically can be a combination of permanent lighting, flash lighting, and so on. Now, we both use a lot of similar equipment with our lighting, but we also have very different equipment as well. And look, maybe we'll start looking at the studio stuff. Now, myself,
sure.
I went off and bought a whole bunch of studio lighting, the Electron lighting. So a lot of people might know of Electron. It's one of the more expensive studio lights. It's got a constant light built into it, and it's also got a flash. So if you're doing portrait shoots and stuff, you can use those lights. If you're doing video, you can use them too. But
I think they all have like a modeling lamp, so it's called the modeling lamps,
Yes.
and you can switch them on separately, and you can actually screw in a different light bulb into it, like the intensity of the light bulb, I think it as well. So it's they're a bit older now, aren't they? Like they're
a bit older.
Yeah,
But they're good lighting. But the constant lighting on those is actually a very, very yellow color.
It is,
So
yeah.
if you are going to use it for video production, unless of course you're going for that very, very hot, warm color, you need to run like screens in front of it, blue screens, to change the color from that yellow light to more of a white light. So a lot of mine are wrapped up in blue foil, so it changes the lighting.
So I think the lighting is on the original globe anyway. I think my one still has the original globe as well in that, and I think that's around sort of 2000 Kelvin, where we're trying to sort of push it more towards the 5,500 Kelvins. And for people that don't know, the Kelvins is obviously the measure of in light of yellow to white. So daylight is more 5,500 Kelvin, and then more like incandescent light, like a room light, is more around sort of 2,500 Kelvin. Yeah, look, I think a lot of those lights were a bit old as well. So now we're sort of getting more into that LED component. So
yeah, definitely. LED is another one. But, I mean, these are great lights if you're doing flash photography, doing portrait work, you're doing modeling sort of shots. And, they do have the strobe light abilities in them as well. So they're really, really good. They're super bright as well. I mean, they are super bright. The good thing about the Electrons is they work on infrared, or they also work on wireless. So if you've got a camera which has got a trigger on it and it's running infrared, or if it's running a wireless system, it'll actually pick up on it. It doesn't have to be wired up, and it'll just flash when your camera goes off. So
which I use
intuitive.
that for that as well. Yeah, definitely.
and they're great lights. The downfall of them, obviously, is they're not very portable. If you're going to be running a battery pack, the battery pack's like a car battery. And once the globes go, especially the flash globe, you're looking at about $150 to $250 per globe, which is astronomical.
It's ridiculously expensive. Yeah, it's they're good lights. They're strong. Look, I've had my Elechrome for probably about good 7 years. Actually, I'm probably one of the first ones that I purchased, and the globe is still okay. You know what I mean? I mean, recently I haven't actually used it for about a year now. But saying that, though, as soon as I power it up, it just flashes and just keeps going and going. And I've used it on a number of different shoots for like dance companies and other things, and they really work quite well. You just chuck a beauty dish on it, and then the beauty dish basically is strong enough to be able to light up the whole face and the whole body virtually. And then you just put a couple of flashes at the back just to sort of even out the lights. And that one light really gives you a really good, nice, beautiful feel with a beauty dish.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and they're really rich light colors. I mean, I find LED has a very harsh light to it, a very cold, harsh light.
It is a bit different one. Yeah.
And the Elechrons they're very warm, and there's something very nice about them, but they're also quite large and quite expensive, and so then there's also the LED constant lights that we use. So I'm a big fan of aperture lighting. I have a number of aperture lights for my cameras, and in the studio I use the LS1S, which is a big, huge LED panel, and one of the other lights which is more common, because the LS1S, which a lot of people haven't heard of because it's actually deleted now, is the LS120D Mark II, which we both have that light. And that's a massive LED light which produces quite a bit of light, allows you to use a softbox on it, and it's an all-round fantastic light. The color is very accurate. It doesn't have any distortion to it. Like, I find that I've used a lot of panel lights in past, and we both picked up a couple of X-Rental ones when we first started off, and I always found that the X-Rental lights had like a purple tinge to them, which personally for me it was a disgusting light to work with. It destroyed your image. But the apertures have got one of the best color there is out there. I mean, the 120D Mark II is a super bright light. It's reasonable to carry around, and you can actually run them off the V-Lock batteries as well.
V-mount batteries. Yeah.
And
I think I've got a V-mount battery that's, I think, about 90 C. Is it C? But I used to run it for about probably good 3 hours, which is reasonably, a reasonable amount of time to be able to shoot it. So definitely, man, it's definitely worth it. I mean, they're not cheap as well, but we're just looking at some pricing before, and you pick one up for a couple of, just around $1,000 mark. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But they keep their value. So even secondhand ones are still selling for $850, which you might as well just buy brand new, spend the extra $100 and buy yourself a new one.
Oh, 100%, man.
Yeah, but they're fantastic lights, and they fill up a whole entire room. Obviously, it's not a stadium light. If you want something to fill up a whole recital hall or a dance hall or something like that, you'd want to go for something like the 300D or the 600D, which I believe. Yeah. Those things will blind people out. Like, it's just they are so
super, super bright, but they're also super expensive, and they're super huge as well. I mean, the light, I know the 300D, the whole kit, you need a suitcase for that sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
The controller box weighs the same as a brick. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's very heavy. And I mean, look, they're fantastic light for studio lights, and like if you're coming in and photographing or video of cars or whatever else. I mean, that light will give you a really good overall brightness, but they're just so huge to be able to carry with you. I mean, the 120 I think it's perfect for interview style things, and that's why I mainly use all my interview stuff with the 120D. I've got a big like a big dome on it as well, and it's a aperture light dome too, and I've got a honeycomb on it as well, so just to direct the light a little bit better as well. So, but that 120, it gives you a lot of options, and it has different things like you can emulate a broken light bulb or lighting or even a TV. So if you're filming someone and they can emulate a TV screen, you know what I mean, which is really good, where the older panels didn't have that option, you know what I mean?
No, they just flickered because oh crap.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the 120D Mark 1 or Mark 2 is probably a really good light if you want to actually have it in a studio, or if you want to move it around and take it out with you on a portable.
Yeah, that's what I think anyway. Yeah, definitely.
But you've got the 300 and the 600, which is purely studio based. Unless you've got a whole crew carrying stuff around with you, don't even look at those. If you do want more power out of your 120D, you can actually buy a product which is called a Fresnel, which is like a big magnifying glass. And what it does is it intensifies the light that's coming out of the actual the LED. And it multiplies it by about 25 to 50%. So it brightens it up, but it creates a direct beam. So it's like a pencil beam as opposed to a wide angle. So if you're like, it's almost like one of those spotlights you see in the old movies on the cans where they used to follow people across on stages. So it creates that type of effect. Really, really good. The Fresnel for the aperture, I don't believe they come with barn doors on them, unfortunately, which means that you have very little control over the beam. But that's another option you've got.
I don't think I've actually used one, to be honest with you, man. I for the stuff that I do is mainly just like a normal dome or something like that, and I think I know you've got one, right? But have you actually used one on a shoot though? That's the thing.
Not for a shoot. It's more for creative sort of work, because it allows you to use the barn doors to direct the light, so you can create, instead of filling the whole entire room, you can create like a line across the background or a line across someone's eyes, so just their eyes are lit up and the rest of their face is dark. That sort of effect, so that it's more cinematic sort of thing. It's not the type of light you would carry around to an interview. I mean, the Fresnel itself and the barn doors you wouldn't take to an interview. The light itself, yes, you would, 100%. So the really good light. A couple of the other ones that I use is the HR672, which is, I believe it's an Amaron. Now, a lot of people won't know very much about these. They're just basically flat plate LEDs. They're lightweight. They use the Sony batteries, NPF I think it is. And they're really good for close-knit sort of soft light. They're not very bright. So you'd need like about 3 or 4 to light up a product. For interviews, they're very weak, so you wouldn't use them for that sort of thing. But if you're doing product work in a studio, they're fantastic. They're really, really good lights. They are built like crap though. They're all plastic, so if you drop one of those, it's not gonna recover. And it chews through batteries as well. So,
see, from my perspective, I wouldn't recommend any of that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? It's, to me, is look, I guess when you're starting off, it should be okay, but like if you're serious about getting into this sort of kind of work, spend the extra bucks. You know what I mean? I think it's going to save you money in long run.
But it depends on what you're really doing. I mean, you wouldn't use a HR672W. Sorry, I'm just giving you the numbers because that's what it's actually called. You wouldn't use it for like an interview. Well, I've done it in past when I was desperate for lights because something that happened to my lights, or I didn't have them with me. And I got away with it, but they're not designed for that purpose. They're more of a product light. So, if you're trying to light up a product,
so you got to be really close to it, obviously.
Yeah, they're not super powerful lights. And the downfall of these lights is they're good for that. They come with filters, so you can actually filter the actual light, but they chew through batteries like there's no tomorrow. And if you try and run power adapters, it actually drains so much power that it actually makes the power adapter switch off. So I had problems with those, but look, they're not bad. I mean, have them there in the collection. I got them given to me, so I use them on the odd occasion. Not my go-to light, but they are there. Also, in the studio, when you're doing macro work or close-up work, you've actually recently done some stuff where you use that probe lens of yours, using a couple of nanolights, the Parvos. And you've done some amazing work at the Parvos. Can you tell us about the Parvos? Because you've got a whole range of Parvos.
I do have. So the Nanlite. So Nanlite's the company that produces those tube lights. So it's virtually a tube light that's approximately. Let me get some stats on this here.
The tube lights these are like cheaper copies of the Parvo lights, which are worth thousands of dollars. So the Nanolite has produced a user-friendly version, which is cheaper. The Nanolights that they use in studios are worth like $8,000 to $10,000 for a set. So I mean that's ridiculously expensive. Unless you're doing huge studio productions, you wouldn't be getting those. You'd be trying to find another option.
the Nanlite sort of Pavo tube. So I sort of looked at it just because for the fact that it's an RGB light, so you can have spectrum of all the lights, so red, green, blue, and whatever basically light color you want, they have, and it's pretty strong as well. So the one that I've got is the Nanlite Pavo Tube 15C, and they're basically about 60 centimeters, so 600 mil long LED tubes, and they're really, really good because they actually have inbuilt batteries in them as well, and those batteries last for approximately about 2 hours, and I've used them in the past for like room lighting, or just to sort of get that extra ambience into the room. And I think you can, they really work quite well because of the fact that they're strong, number one, and number two, you can simulate colors of, like, if your client has like a purple or something like that, you can simulate the purple as a rim light when the interview is happening. So that gives that little bit extra edge. But look, like, I've got two of them, and they're not the cheapest things out as well, but I think they're definitely worthwhile getting, because they are tuned quite well. And they're pretty bright as well. So yeah, no, they're good.
I actually, you inspired me, and I don't actually have a use for coloured lighting, but I was inspired by yours, and I actually went off and bought the cheaper versions, which are called the Nanlite Pavo Tube 2 6C, which they're actually really, really small, but they're pretty powerful. I have to say, I've actually got one sitting next to me at the moment. Very bright, multiple colours, inbuilt power supply. I think they're a really interesting light to add some effects.
Yeah. I just wanted to add as well, those lights actually give you like an option of simulating a police car or something like that. I don't know if that's what you're going to say.
It's actually funny you should say that. I was thinking about sticking those on the dashboard of my car and driving around with them. Yeah, that is illegal, by the way, just so people don't try doing it at home. But they're amazing lights. They're really good. And one of the things that I actually was thinking about using them for is using them for a rim light, which we'll talk about a little bit later on when we're talking about videography. But it's such a small, handy little light, and it works for hours. And they're only about $100 each. They're $100. They're quite durable. They're not waterproof, unfortunately, but you're not going to go scuba diving with them. But there you go. So basically, they're the types of lights that we use for studio work. Now, then we've got lighting that you would use for video production. Now, when you're doing a video production, ultimately, there's a couple of setups that you would need to do. Generally speaking, the best type of lighting setup that you've got is a key light, a fill light, and a rim light. So, mate, I'm just going to hand that over to you so you can give everyone a bit of a breakdown as to what each one of those lights does.
Look, I don't think I am a lighting guru, to be honest with you, man. I've just sort of, I've done it for a while now, and look, the main thing when I do sort of do interview style is will be the main light, which will be sort of just to give you that overall feel of the face or the body or whatever you're filming. And I would use the 120Y for 120D for that, the Aperture 120D too. And then you can have, that's the main light will be sitting on the left or the right hand side of the subject, and with a diffuser, it will give you a nice wrap around, so it's just give you that soft feeling and that fuzzy kind of look. And you can put a honeycomb on it as well. So you put a diffuser first and then put a honeycomb onto it as well. And that honeycomb will just direct the light directly onto your subject rather than spilling it on the back wall.
Yeah, so basically the honeycomb directs it into one area. So if you don't want to light the person and the whole entire room, you use the honeycomb and it directs the light where you're actually pointing it. So you can have a room behind the person that you're interviewing, which is dark. Yep. And it makes the person stand out more.
Think of it, I guess, in a way when you have one of those privacy screens on your laptop or your phone, where if you look at that privacy screen right in front, you can see everything that's on the phone. But if you look to the side a little bit, you won't be able to see anything. You know what I mean? So that light beam is just focused directly where you want it to be focused, if that makes sense. So that basically be used on the main, sort of as a main. And then you can have a fill light. So we can have a fill light can also be a bounce. So if you can, I've used in the past like a white reflector or something like that, which is just a bounce, what happens is it will give you from a little bit extra light from the, so if you're lighting it from the left main light, the bounce will be from the right hand side, if that makes sense. And that will just give you that extra feel into the shadows. So the shadows will have a bit of detail in it, and it will just give you that nice round around.
So basically, your key light is the brightest one. Your fill light is not as bright, and what it does is it creates the two different tones on the face. So one side is bright and shiny, and the other side is dark, but it's not completely lost in like this dark shadow.
Yeah, you're still getting.
Yeah, so
you're still getting a bit of feel. Yeah. So that's cool. Right. And then I guess what I would use at the end would be, like the backlight as well. So the rim light, what we call it. The rim light is to give you that sort of, shiny halo almost feel, depending on obviously what you're using it for. But like in the past, I've used those Nanlite Pavo tubes and sort of, fill in maybe a purple or a blue or something like that. And just that will give you like a bit of an extra edge to the video itself. Those Pav lights though, the Pavo lights, they're quite new. So, you can just set them up to normal 5,500 Kelvin, which will just give you a normal rim light, but you can sort of play around with it and give that extra edge. So the 3-point light is what normally we would use for any sort of lighting situations. You can obviously play around with it a bit more dramatic or less dramatic. So you can have one light source from top, and then that will and then a little bit of bounce from the bottom. But yeah, looking at, depending on obviously the budget of the customers and the clients that we have, depending on obviously creativity that you want to go through as well. There's different types of different things. I mean, probably best way just to jump on Google and have a quick snoop around and see what's required. But if anyone's starting off, I think the main light is the main key thing to do to get, one good reasonable light. You don't have to have multiple lights, but I think one is the main thing. Yeah.
And not a cheap one that's got a purple tinge to it, which creates a horrible hue. But
well, when you're buying them second hand, it's kind of a bit hard as well, Because in the past I've purchased a couple of second hand panels and try to save money this way and that way, and there was some that I purchased that were fantastic, And then there's others that we got as well, that had that sort of purple tinge to it, and you kind of go, what's going on here? But yeah, look, it's when you're starting off, you sort of learn about a lot of different things, and you make mistakes as like everybody else. So.
And that's how you learn, by making mistakes.
So yeah, that's right.
So that's a 3-point lighting system, which is common to photography, videography, and it's the way you're meant to be doing your lighting. And obviously, there are situations where you may use a little bit less lighting or a little bit more. Now, if you're using a green screen, in addition to the 3-point lighting, you also need to have lights on the green screen as well. So in that particular instance, unless you've got like one super amazing bright light which will cover the whole entire screen, you'd probably be better off having a light on either side of the green screen. And the reason you want to light up the green screen is when you're actually editing later on. If the green screen is not equally lit up, I should say, not colored, what will happen is post-production, your video editing program will actually have problems cutting out the whole entire green screen, and you'll have bits and pieces floating in and out. So what you need to do is, with the lighting on the back, so you've got two lights pointing at the green screen on either side of it, you need to make sure that the lighting's equal across the whole green screen. And I mean, to an eye, you put two lights there, you look at it and you go, oh yeah, that looks pretty bright, equal. But the only way that you can really figure out if the lighting's equal is to use false color. Now, a lot of cameras don't have false color. And what false color is basically what it does is it actually shows you your image, but it's portrayed in different color shades. So, you've got your reds, which are overexposed, which means anything that's in red is just pure white. And it's like a bright light will be shown as red. A dark purple will be things that are black. In the middle of the field, faces, for example, should be like a pinky grey colour. So there's this. It's actually not logical the way it's shown up on the graph, because there's a key to most false color, apps or programs. But when you look at the key, you sort of figure out where you need to be, and that's the best way to figure it out. Now, some cameras don't have that. For example, a DSLR. I know the Canons don't have it. The Sonys don't have it either, do they?
Look, to be honest with you, I never used it on the Sony. I mainly used it on the Aperture. That's not Aperture. On the Atomos.
Which is a separate screen, so it's not part of the actual camera. It's a movie screen that sits on top of the camera, so you can see higher details. So that's one of the features of the screen. But the camera itself probably doesn't.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
The Blackmagic.
I could be wrong. The wife tells me I'm wrong all the time, so I could be wrong.
I won't agree to that. So Blackmagics actually do have false color built into the camera, so you can actually just press a button and see that. So if you're doing green screens and you want to make it perfect, try and get a false color perspective. What will actually help you set up the lighting a lot better. That's really important. And then you've also got the 3-point lighting on the person that's talking to the camera, and that's how you get the person all colored up. Now, one of the reasons we don't use a single forward-facing light that projects from the camera at the actual client is because what it'll do is, because it'll light both sides of the face equally, it creates a very flat image. So it almost creates this like 2D image with no characteristics to it. It doesn't pop out. It doesn't do anything. By using the 3-point lighting, what it does is it creates a 3D sort of image, which makes the person stand out. It makes it a richer image, and that's why we use
I guess
those.
You could say you actually put depth into the actual image itself.
Exactly, by shadows. By creating shadows and so on. And there's a whole different range of school of thoughts of how you should be projecting shadows and so on. But that's the point. That's the reason we use 3-point lighting. Now, there will be instances where you can't obviously use 3-point lighting, run and gun situations where, you've literally got very little time to set up lights, or you just don't have the capacity to carry that much lights. For example, when I travel interstate and I've got a backpack with my video camera in it, and all my accessories, including lighting, I can't be carrying 3 sets of lights. It's just too much, So for me, I will carry one light, and I'll use that as a key light, and I'll try and use ambient light in the room, or down lights in the room, or other lighting in the room to project, like the fill lights and the rim lights and stuff like that.
Yeah, personally, I probably wouldn't sort of do down lights or anything like that. I'll probably try to find a good light source from a window, and then the window will give you a nice soft edge, and then you can use your main or key light to use it as potentially as a fill light. You know what I mean? And that fill light, can give you the same sort of,
But
outcome.
that's if there's a window there, obviously. Because
of course, 100%.
I shot a video early last week. I was in an office building, boardroom. There was not a single window there. It was just basically my one light and a whole bunch of downlights. And if you are working with downlights, one of the things that I highly recommend is if you're trying to figure out where to put your client, make sure you try and put that client between 2 downlights in the middle of both of them, because if you're a little bit more closer to one than the other, it will start casting shadows left, right, and center. So you want to try and balance those shadows out. So you try and put them in the middle of it, and try and have the downlights behind the client, so it acts like a bit of a rim light, and it doesn't cast any shadows against the wall. If it's in front of the client, it'll cast shadows behind them all over the wall and stuff, which actually looks really, really terrible.
Look, I think with that sort of stuff, it's a lot of practice makes it perfect. You know what I mean? In the past, I've done that sort of stuff, and I think your brain starts ticking as soon as you walk into a room. So experience the key here, I think. You know what I mean? Don't just feel like you're gonna listen to this podcast and you're gonna walk into a room and you can light it straight away just like that. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. You know what I mean? You just have to.
There's times where I've done a shoot and I've sat there for 15, 20 minutes looking at shadows and stuff. I film it, I get home and I look at it on the screen and I'm like, there's a shadow right there. Why did I not see it when I was in the room?
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but that's how it is. Now, one of the lights that we actually haven't spoken about, which is it's good for studio work, it's good for photography. It's a constant light. It's called the Nanlite Forza 60. Now, I actually own the Forza 60. I believe you do as well.
Yeah. I've got the just one. I don't have the bicolor one, just the standard one.
Yeah,
I think it's just daylight
both.
balanced. Yeah.
And I've got the Forza 60D, sorry B, sorry, which is bicolor, and I've also got the standard 60. Now that is my run and gun light. It is so small it can fit in the palm of your hand. It's an LED light, which is a constant light. It's actually reasonably bright. And what I do,
I actually think it's actually sorry to hold that thought. I actually think that light is almost on par with the 120D aperture. They're very very bright and. You might not agree, but I think with me is, I've used that as a key light sometimes, and I've used that as a rim light, and I think it's a brilliant light, you know what I mean? So I do really think that light is, money-wise, it's actually really affordable, and it's very light, it's very portable, and you can do so much to it. It's just, yeah. Sorry.
No, definitely. No, I completely agree with you. But the only thing I will say is I still think the Aperture 120D Mark II is a brighter light.
Oh, by all means, it's... Yeah, look... yeah, we can agree to disagree.
Well, but the thing is, in the same vein, I mean, the Aperture is $1,100 for the light. This one's a $300 light. So when you put it in perspective, value for money, this is a great light. That's why I've got two of them.
Oh yeah.
So I think they're great. They're fantastic. I'm not downplaying them. I think if you've got the money, I would still go for the Aperture. If you've got the ability to carry a bigger light, if you're looking for something to run and gun, something small that's portable, then the Nanlite Forza 60 is sensational, especially for the price.
Oh, look, yeah, I really enjoy that light, and I think, you can do so much with that light. You can put 2 NP batteries on that as well, and I've put one of the 2 big ones, and I think I've run it for about 4 hours, 5 hours straight, no problems, just kept on going, you know what I mean? Yeah. And the funny thing about that is you can actually mount it on like if you want to do I don't know, maybe a sunset shoot or something like that, you can pop it onto like a pole of some sort, and then basically light your client or your subject in a way that someone can hold that light, and you can just keep on shooting images or whatever else, video, which is it's a really good light. Personally, I think it's a really good light. So yeah,
one hands down, not a problem. I completely agree, especially for the price. I still have the soft spot for Aperture, but for value,
I think it's the same. Yeah. I do like the Aperture, don't get me wrong.
Now, one of the things that actually the Nanlite comes with is a 55-degree reflector, as they call it, which is basically a half sphere. It fits over the front of the light, and it actually boosts the brightness of the light. So when I travel, because that particular reflector is so small, I carry that. Instead of carrying a whole entire softbox with me, I have a little sock that fits over the top of it. It's a little silk sock, and it acts as a small diffuser. And I can still do interviews with this one light, and it works. It's powerful enough. The little diffuser, it's not the best diffuser, but it works. Like if about a month ago, I was in Sydney, and I had my little f-stop bag on my back, which is microscopic. I had 2 tripods in there. I had the lighting system. I had the video recorder. I had the audio system. I had the microphones. I had everything in this little backpack as hand luggage. That was a feat packing everything in there. I've got to say, I was very impressed with myself. It took a while. But I just don't like having my gear, unless I'm sending it through with a giant Pelican case. I don't like it underneath the actual cargo, in the cargo bay. So they're sensational, great little light to carry along with you. And like we mentioned earlier, there is the 60B bicolor. I've recently purchased one. It came up at a reasonably great price. I figured, why not? Yep. I have to say I'm not that impressed with the bicolor one. It takes a bit of time to kick in. So you switch it on and you're sitting there waiting for it to kick in.
Yeah, it takes a couple of seconds, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. Like 3 seconds or so to kick in, which, look, I mean, you can live with that. But the way it changes from, the white light to more of an orange light, and because you can get a progression through the controllers, it's not smooth. It's very all over the place. Okay. And it doesn't produce as much light. So the 60B, which is the bicolor, does not produce as much light as a 60.
The thing is 60 is a bit stronger, isn't it?
It is. And look, most bicolor lights, you'll find that happens quite often. So that's the reason for it. So anyway, but they're good lights. They're good lights, especially the 60, the straight out 60 is a really good light.
I think Nanlite came very long way from where they were to start producing this sort of, on par with apertures and, on all the, we haven't sort of mentioned Godox as well, which I don't really have a lot of Godox gear, but, there's all, Aperture, Nan and Godox is, they're very similar now. Obviously Aperture is a bit better quality, and when you pick that up, you feel the quality in your hand, you know what I mean? But yeah, look, I think Nanlite came a long, long way, and they obviously producing some amazing gear, and it's quite impressive. Impressive, yeah.
Especially for the price. I mean, you would not expect the quality that you get for $300. I honestly, the first one I purchased, I thought this is going to be crap, and I have had no regrets at all. It's been great. In fact, that's probably the one light that I actually drag out everywhere with me. Even though the Aperture is my favorite light, it's a lot bigger, a lot heavier, and it doesn't go out that often unless it's a much bigger job. So if you've got a quick job that you need to do, or you don't have a huge budget, then light's the way to go. Anything else that you wanted to add to video lighting at all?
Well, let me think. I think I think from my perspective, we covered pretty much a lot of things. The thing is, like, lately I've been using my video lights for my photography work as well. So I kind of stepped away from those sort of strobes and flash lighting and everything else as well. I just find that it's much easier to use, and you can get some great images without sort of the strobes, and you have problems with adjusting the intensity of the light, and then your apertures and your ISOs and whatever else. Or if you do a constant light, you can see everything straight away. You know what I mean? I don't know. Have you actually tried that?
That's actually one of the ways I do most of my shoots, unless of course I'm walking around at for example, if I'm doing a photo shoot at a reception, for example. You can't carry around a massive light with a diffuser on it and stuff like that. That's impossible. So you go back to your flashlights of those, and I think flashes do have their place. Just the portability of them is amazing, and we'll get into that in a second about those lights.
We talk about speed lights. Yeah,
speed lights. But on the subject of constant lights on your still camera, a couple of the ones that I actually use is the Aperture MW and the Aperture MX. So
the little ones?
Yeah, the little ones that sit on top of you. They sit on the hot shoe, basically, directly on your camera. They're a constant light, so they give you that constant effect. So that there's no harshness to them or anything. You can adjust them. They've got filters on them. You can change the color of them.
They came a long way. I think they've released not long ago like a whole briefcase full of them, wasn't it? Is that what you're talking about?
No, these are the ones that came before the briefcase. The briefcase ones are the multicolored ones, so you can actually set them up in different colors. So there's about 12 lights in a briefcase, and you can change all the colors on them and set them up around the room, and they interact with each other. These are the ones that came out before then. So they had light settings, effects, like typically like the 120 or the flash strobe, blah blah blah. They're not super bright. They're not designed to be super bright, so they're more of just a fill light, a very small fill light. They're very, very small. They fit in the palm of your hand. They're very well built. The MX is a really nice light, but in saying that, it's not super powerful. And I quickly replaced it with the MW, which is it's actually smaller but chunkier. It's waterproof. It's actually designed for scuba diving. So you can actually dip it under the water and it won't, nothing will happen to it.
Inbuilt batteries, obviously, as well, right?
Yeah, they've both got inbuilt batteries. The MW on the brightest setting, and I got to tell you, this, if you looked into this light, for such a small light, it'll blind you. It's way too bright for such a small light. You can actually have it on the highest setting for an hour. If you put on the lowest setting, so it's just like a real ambient light, you can have it on for like 24 to 40 hours. It's an amazing light. So if you're looking for something that'll fit on top of your camera and have a constant light there all the time, these are really good options.
Yeah, I never used any of that sort of stuff. And I mean, if I got one, I'll probably just use it for more like filling in. So if you, look, when you're filming someone, interview, or whatever else, you might pop that light on the left hand side or the right hand side into like a dark spot, so just to brighten something up. You know what I mean? I think they're good for that. I definitely wouldn't use it on my on top of my camera. You know, I just don't like that flat sort of look. You know what I mean? For me, is to get that flat look, you might as well just use your iPhone for that sort of stuff, or
No, granted.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there is a place for it. Like if you're doing like a key light, so like you want to get a reflection happening. Like you move the light across a product, and you get that glowing light on the edge of the product.
Oh, okay.
That works really well. But in saying that, a lot of reporters, television reporters, have actually got lights, the big versions, the Amerons, stuck on the top of their cameras. So they do create that flat image. But the reality behind it is a reporter on television is not going to be going for that cinematic look, and they don't care about quality. They just want to be able to see the person's face. And they're on TV for like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. They want to be able to see the person's face talking. They don't care about shadows and stuff. And it works for that type of setup. So it depends on what you're really doing with them. Cinematic, probably not the way to go. Also, so they're the types of lights you can use, or if you want to use the bigger lights that we were talking about earlier, obviously you can use those too, but they're not as usable if you're walking around in crowds and stuff like that. Back to the camera photos and lights. What type of speed lights are you using for? Like, and when I say
I've
speed
got
lights,
two. Yeah. So on the camera,
they're flash units. So they
speed lights. Yeah. So I've got two. I don't really have huge amount of them. I mean, you can use the massive ones and everything else, but I personally use, for the Canon, I use my 430. I don't know. You got one as well. Yes, it's 432, or I don't know. I can't remember what the name of it.
Yeah, 480 or something. There's all different types. There's 430. Sorry,
I think
430?
430s. Yeah. It's a smaller one. It's not a huge one. I think the 580, the one you've got, it's a huge one. But yeah, so for Canon, for the my 5D Mark III, I used the 430 EX. I think it is. I should probably try to pull it out. See if I can,
EX.
it's probably
EX. EX.
Yeah, and then for the Sony, I've actually used the Godox. Let me just open that up so I can give you more details on that.
And just quickly, the 430 is actually a wireless system. It works on wireless radio transmissions as a trigger mechanism for it. The reason I say that is because there's a variety of different mechanisms in the Canon flashes. So, for example, the 580 is an infrared flash. So to trigger it, you need an infrared light. It's really weird why they introduced two different types of trigger sources, but it's good to know that, because if you're buying an infrared flash and you go off and buy a trigger for it, which is not an infrared, it won't work. And I actually got caught out with that. But keep going. You Godox?
Yeah, so I use the Godox V862S. So the S is actually specifically for Sony cameras. They do produce, I think it's O, and then there's N, I think, for Nikons as well. So they're all different types. So I can't actually use the Canon stuff on the actual on the Canon stuff. I can't use it on the Sony, and vice versa. Just
their hot shoes work in a different way, and the modern,
I think the Sony one's actually got a lot more pins inside as well. So that will give you a lot more control over that as well.
The what Canon did was they went off and changed the hot shoe between different models. So the Mark III and the Mark IV had a different hot shoe. So you couldn't end up using aftermarket flashes and trigger systems on the Mark IV that you were using on the Mark III. So you had to go and change everything, which caught me out as well. That was another thing that irritated me. But they do it so that you buy their products, but if you wait a little bit, the next company will come out with something, they'll copy it, and there you go.
But yeah, look, to be honest with you, I haven't shot, I guess, weddings or like a reception kind of style shots. You know what I mean? And I got this Godox camera flash probably about 2 years ago, and I haven't actually used it once. So it's just been sitting in my cupboard doing nothing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a tricky one, you know what I mean? You probably have to have one in a way if you're sort of shooting this sort of type of events or whatever else. But like, I don't really shoot any of that stuff anymore. So that's why I haven't used it for such a long time. But I'm guessing you would use it, and tell me about yours, what stuff. So you got mainly obviously the Canon flashes.
Yeah. So I originally had the 580EX2, and that was the one that's infrared. So basically, if you wanted to trigger it, like if you want to take the flash off and stick it on a tripod away from the camera, so off-camera flash work, on your camera you had to have a trigger system, so like a transmitter, but it wouldn't be able to work on a wireless system like a radio transmitter. It had to be an infrared transmitter, and you had to have line of sight. And I found that really aggravating, because if you were, for example, trying to take a photo of a person and you had the flash behind them to try and create a rim light, unless the infrared could actually see the flash, it wouldn't work. So it's really annoying. So I recently upgraded, and I ended up getting the 600EXs. So I ended up with 3 of those. And basically that allows you, and they all work with each other, and they've also got the... it's a transmitter that sits on top of the actual camera, and it transmits to all of them. So you can actually set them up in groups and set them off at different times, or set them off at the same time. Or you can use an individual flash as the master control, and then have other flashes as slaves. So the one that's on the camera fires, and when that fires, it sends a signal out to the other to the other flashes and sets those off. So you can use a separate unit to trigger everything, or you can actually use one of the flashes. So, and the reason you want to take the flash off the actual camera is because what will happen is it'll allow you to create like the key light sort of effect, where you get one side brighter, one side darker, more of a full featured sort of face. If you've got the flash on your camera and it's pointing at the person, it's just going to give you that flat image. And that's why we take the flashes off the camera. Look, and there's times where, you're walking around, there's a lot of people, you're at a wedding or a reception, and there's just too many people for you to be carting around a tripod with a flash on it and sticking it down, and then walking a couple of meters away to take a photo. It just doesn't work. It's not practical. In those particular cases, you basically leave the flash on top of your camera, and you bounce it off the roof or something like that. You do a lot of bouncing, yeah?
Yeah, look, I think it gives you a really good that sort of ambient feeling if you do bounce it, and like you said, if you pop the flash on top and directly into the person's face, it's just gonna look like crap. You know what I mean? So it doesn't look professional. It doesn't look flattering at all. So I think it's We should actually probably mention as well that if you do buy a professional camera, you won't actually have a flash on top of the system. So both of our 5D Mark, I think 5D Mark 2, 3, and 4, none of those cameras actually have a flash on the camera. So the pop-up flash,
the pop-up flashes are the ones that are built into cameras are very weak, and you're able to light up a scene from about 1 meter or maybe 2 meters, and that's it. The camera, the separate flashes that you purchase later down the track, they're a lot stronger, and they can fill up an entire room if you need to. And that's the reason they're not on the professional cameras, because you're not going to use a shitty little flash to take photos with. Now, bouncing the light off the roof fills up the whole room, and it creates less shadows, and it's not as bright. It doesn't burn the person's face and stuff like that in like a wedding shot, for example.
Overexposed to talk about.
Yeah, pretty much. So the problem, of course, is if you're shooting a shot and the roof is like 20 meters high, or there is no roof, you've got nothing to bounce off, so it doesn't work. In that particular case, what you do is you can get a diffuser. And what it does, it fits on top of the actual flash, and it actually projects the light out in every direction. So it creates like a dome color lighting effect. So even if you don't have a roof to bounce the light off, it'll still project light out sideways. So you'll still get a soft, diffused light everywhere.
So it looks like a sock, basically, doesn't it?
Well, there's different ones on the market. I use the first one that I used was cheap, crappy eBay one. It was a plastic cap that sat on top of the flash, and it worked. It wasn't bad. But the better you get at it, the more you want better quality equipment. You want to get that smooth effect as opposed to the harsh lighting. So the next one I went to was the Gary Fong Light Sphere, which it's actually quite a good little setup. It works well. It's just basically like this little cup that folds into itself, and you can drop it in your bag. And when you're ready, you just basically unfold it, put the dome on top, Velcro it onto your flash, and it's ready to go. And it's a good setup. It's not cheap. It's about $140, $150. what I found a little bit difficult with it was sliding it onto a flash all the time and, Velcroing it on and then trying to put the dome on top. It was a bit finicky, and it was getting annoying. It still produced really good quality photos, but it was just annoying putting it together. And a friend of mine introduced me to another brand called MagMod, and they do a variety of different types of basically diffusers. So one of the most popular is called the MagSphere, which is, the way it works is you have a magnet base connected to the flash, and then you have this diffuser which basically clips onto the top of the flash using magnets. So you literally just drop it on top and it goes clonk and it clicks instantaneously. It's super fast. You want it to pull it off, you just clonk and it's back off again. And they're interchangeable because the base fits all across every single one of their diffusers. So really great product, super expensive though. To get a kit, a magnet base and a MagSphere diffuser, you're looking at about $150 to $180 for a piece of plastic. It's a silicone.
Australian dollars. So we're talking about 130 American dollars.
Yeah. And look at that. They've got a huge variety of different types. You got the Snoot. You got the. I think the other one is called the Mag Bounce, which is it's like a big. It's like the Opera House. It's got this big dome that's open, and it's really good for big groups. If you're shooting in a big empty room, it projects out a lot more light. And that in itself.
I think I've used that one before. Yeah.
They're great. They're easy to use. They're just damn expensive. And there's a whole range, and there's a whole sub community of people who are into MagMod. They're obsessed with them. They do light boxes. They do everything under the sun, but you're paying through the nose for them. But they're really good for projecting light if you don't have a roof to bounce off, or if you want to get more of a smoother sort of effect, or you want to fill up the whole room. They also come with the little nets, so you can actually aim the light in particular directions as opposed to
like a honeycomb. You're talking about
the honeycomb, yeah. So so they also come with that as well. I don't personally use them, but they're available as well, and they're really, really good. That I'd highly recommend getting a good diffuser when you're using.
Yeah, look,
flash.
I never really used any of that sort of stuff, and I mean, and on odd occasions that I did use it, I don't know. I'm not a fan. You know what I mean? I just think you can literally stick a bit of a maybe A4 sheet of paper with a bit of a elastic band or something on top, just to give that. You can just bounce the light off that, and then it will give you a nice bounce towards the the people or your subject. I don't know. Look, spending $180, $200 on all this extra stuff. I don't know. I'm just not convinced, man.
I completely agree with you, but the problem, of course, is if you're walking around with a piece of paper sticking off the top of your camera.
Oh, you don't look professional. That's exactly right.
Yeah, exactly. And as we've mentioned numerous times, the customer looks at that. So you walk around, compare the person with a piece of A4 paper hanging off the top of his camera to the guy who's got the MagMod on there, which looks professional. What are you going to think? Yeah, I'm not saying go and buy it so you look professional. Look, for me personally, the MagMod is practical. It's fast. It's fantastic for quality. I did have one change color because silicon does eventually change color. Got in contact with the company. They sent me a brand new one out. No cost. Shipping was free and everything. They're really good. They stand by their products. Yeah, the paper works. You just look a bit weird and old school doing it.
Yeah. I know.
I know. Now, one last thing that I actually wanted to talk about with flash photography, which I've always struggled with, is when you're trying to do a photo shoot of a person against a white background. Now, whenever I try and do a portrait, for example, the white background in every picture turns out like partially grey.
Grey, yeah.
And then I'll look at your photos because you do some amazing portrait work, and I would look at these pictures and your background is beautiful and white and shiny, and we're not talking about modified in post-production. We're talking about just straight from the photo. It's a brilliant. And then I look at mine with this grey background, and for a very long time I could never figure out why. And then I said to you one day, what am I doing wrong here? And you said you need to light the background just as much as you light the foreground, because otherwise it's going to go grey. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, actually, I use Photoshop, man.
Shh. Let's tell people that.
I'm joking. Look, it's basically, so I normally would stand so try to find if I get called out to a client site and say, hey, can you do a couple of portraits on a white background? So the main thing is, I guess, getting that white background sort of pure white, meaning that you have to obviously light it. So what I will do is we'll pop the subject probably about a meter and a half from that background, and then pop a flash as well on the bottom, so it lights up from the bottom up, and it creates that sort of open sort of light beam, and it will just overexpose that background light. So if the light, even if the I guess if the wall is gray or whatever else, if you overexpose something, it will just turn out white. You know what I mean? And then you obviously use your like an Elechrome or another speed light from top left or top right to be able to get that nice sort of half shadow almost face. You know what I mean? And then you can just use a bounce as well, so you can sort of just bring a reflector. I've used one of those round reflectors that sort of pop up open. They're really hard to put together. But when you open them up, they're all white, and that will give you a nice fill light as well. So I guess going back to that 3-point lighting as well, where you light the background first, overexpose it, gives you that nice pure white, and then you light the subject or your face or half of the body to from the left or right, and that's a perfect exposure for that. And then you can bounce a little bit more of that light, the main light, back through the secondary, bounce back into the shadows. Hopefully that makes sense. That's what I do.
I love how you make it sound so easy. It's like, oh, it's just this, and then when I try it, it doesn't work out. One thing that people need to be aware of, you do touch everything up in post production, and you adjust the lighting and stuff. But if you are working purely in post production to fix up a grey background or a background that just didn't work out properly, what happens is it creates this glowing white in post production, which looks really awkward. So if you haven't shot the photo properly to begin with, in post-production you'll actually you'll make it look white, but it will be just a sheer white, which actually looks horrific because it doesn't look natural. It almost looks like you've etched. For product photography, there's this thing called etching, where you basically cut out the entire background and make it. You put the product on top of a completely white background. It looks like you've done that to the portraits if you're doing a lot of editing in post production. So ultimately, if you can actually do that change from the word go, that's the best way to do it. But yeah.
Well, I used Photoshop a lot in that sense for products. So if I had a couple of clients in the past where they said, "All right, let's shoot this product," and the product can be a lipstick or say like a small object. So you would shoot it on a white background, and then what they need to do, like I've shot like candles in the past, you know what I mean? So I'll shoot this candle in front of a white background. It doesn't really matter what it looks like because it's got to be pure white to match the surroundings of the website that's going to be advertised and sold on. So you have to basically cut that subject out and then replace the whole background with pure white background, you know what I mean? And
it's called, in the technical term for it is etching. And I'm personally not a huge fan of it because to me it looks unnatural. You can shoot an image with a white background and actually use it the way it was shot, and it creates more of a natural sort of look to it. I find etching personally, if it's not done properly, I mean, some people are really good at it and they're fantastic, but for the most part, most of the cheap versions of etching that I've seen is horrific.
You got to be careful, because I mean, I've tried it in the past on a green screen, and it really it didn't really work. I mean, I had to spend a lot more time in Photoshop fixing up all the bits and pieces from green. Like we didn't want to cut the subject too much out, so you want to make sure that white background is obviously nice and clean on the product. You know what I mean? So if you're shooting for websites and shops and things like that, a lot of clients want that pure white background, so it mixes back into the actual website itself.
Definitely. One day I hope that I can actually achieve that.
But for portraits, you probably don't want to use that. You don't want to do the etching because of the fact that you want to leave that clear, that crispiness of that person, and like I don't know, it's just I think it works in one sound.
Etching makes the background look like it's glowing. It does not look natural.
Yeah, it works in some instances and doesn't work on the others. So obviously try to get it right in the camera in the first place. I mean, that's what I do anyway. You know what I mean? Try to get it right in the camera, and then if I need to Photoshop or change things around, then obviously I will in Photoshop. So yeah.
All right, well, that's pretty much all I've got to add about lighting that we use. Anything else that you wanted to add up or add in?
Yeah, look, main things that we touched on today was the main ones that we do use. And, I've got, the aperture, we've got the nan lights, we've got, a couple of, a few other things. And I think the main thing is if anyone's sort of starting off and getting into it, it's worthwhile. Like I personally believe spend a little bit extra money, but then, you got to try to get that money back somehow. You know what I mean? So buy what you can afford at this stage. I mean, that's what I've done. And I mean, in worst case scenario, put it back on Marketplace and then get rid of it as well. You know what I mean?
Which is pretty much what we all do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like it's, I've been burned a few times in the past, but then, I bought it cheap and I sold it cheap. You know what I mean? And try to get the money back anyway. So, do some research. Research is the main thing, obviously, But I think if you're sort of sticking with brands like Aperture, like Nanlite, Godox, you can't really go wrong. You know what I mean? I think they're really good brands these days, and you can achieve some amazing results with those. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to get in contact with us, you can reach
shoot
us
us a message through Instagram,
Facebook.
Yeah. If you want to send
website,
email to Evan, Evan at pixellife.com.au.
Pixellife.com. Yeah. And Marty is at Melbourne Images. What email address do you use at Melbourne Images? Is it
just Marty at melbourneimages.com.au.
Oh, wow. And if you want to see...
Don't spam me, okay?
Yeah. Just put him on the mailing list. Send him stuff that he doesn't want to buy.
Unless you want to send me stuff that, you want us to review or have a look at closer, which I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, and if you've got any questions about tonight's show, please feel free to give us a shout out. We're happy to answer any questions. And
it was a quick one today, I think. I don't know. How long did we go for?
Well, not so quick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay then. That was quick.
Yeah. So that's another show. Well, thanks again for joining in.
Thank you, and bye from Marty.
And don't forget also to subscribe if you'd like to be informed of updates and new releases as they come along. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. All the best. Ciao.
Bye-bye.